Welcome to the Power of Food podcast. We are so excited to bring you evidence-based nutrition information focusing on addressing the root cause for imbalance. Food has the power to help you achieve lifelong optimal health without the side effects of prescription medication. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other podcast platform. I am Stacy Seslowski, functional nutrition registered dietitian.
And I am Leah Grace Barrick, functional nutritionist.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Power of Food podcast. We have a special solo episode with myself and Stacy today, and we are talking all about bringing joy to January and February because these can be really hard months for people. They're often considered the most depressing months of the year, so we wanted to chat today about some healthy habits and nutrition to help prevent some of that depression that you might be feeling this time of year. So we're going to cover factors that play into that kind of depression and seasonal affect disorder that you might be experiencing. We'll talk about some healthy habits for this time of year, and then we'll touch on some nutrition to focus on that can really help. So do you want to start us off, Stacy, with talking about some of those factors that play into depression or seasonal affect disorder, or just feeling kind of the blues this time of year?
Yes, absolutely. And it's so unfortunate because it's a beautiful part of the year and it happens every single year for many months in a row. So how can we prepare ourselves for this? Certainly some of the reasons that we feel a little sadness or a little depressed is there's less light. And absolutely when we wake up in the morning and see sunlight and have sunlight in our face and get that, vitamin D throughout the day, that is part of the reasons that we stay healthy, happy in other months during the year. And unfortunately, there's fewer hours of that in the winter times. The cold temperature is definitely a deterrent to wanting to be outside and spend more time in nature and sunlight. And, just the shorter days, you kind of like, I don't know about you, but I wake up and I feel like 2 seconds later, the day is over. And it's like, where did this day go? So it's like you don't even get moving before you know it, it's already dark again. But, and it kind of, you get into this little bit of a lull during those months because of the temperature and the less sunlight. We're also moving a little bit less. If we're not motivated to go outside, then we might just stay home and want to just be cuddled on the couch under blankets. And so maybe we're not moving as much. And, I think there's also like a bit of a letdown after the holiday season. We get so excited for all the family gatherings and some little bit of a break that we might get from work during, the month of maybe November and December. And then all of a sudden it's crashing down over with, in January, February, we have to return to work and there's not as many fun things to look forward to. So I think that's another piece to it.
Entirely. Yeah, I completely agree with all of that, especially the sunlight. And it makes such a difference when we see the sun, when it's warm outside, when we want to go outside. And even just in terms of like your cortisol, right? Like we've talked about in the morning, going outside and letting your eyes see the natural sunlight, that helps increase your cortisol and actually wakes you up in the morning and helps with that circadian rhythm. So not having as much sunlight can be harmful for that and just make you feel overall like blah. Like we all know how it feels when it's even just a rainy day and it's really cloudy compared to a sunny day. And just your mental health really is affected by that in a lot of ways. And I was laughing when you said the going from the holidays to January, because I talk to my clients about this a lot. It's almost like whiplash. Like the holidays is, a time for enjoyment and we slow down, hopefully, and, relax and we aren't working. And then January, everyone's like, oh, new goals, X, Y, and Z, do our New Year's resolution, do all the things. So it's like almost on overdrive, and that can put a lot of pressure on people and, can just really affect our mental health as well during this time when we might be feeling a little bit more down anyways and less energized and kind of ready for those things. One thing that I wanted to add as well that can contribute is that typically this time of year, a lot of people are having more sugar, more unhealthy foods, kind of comfort foods. And we'll talk about this more when we talk about nutrition, but that can also really play into your mood, your energy levels. A lot of people over the holidays are eating a lot of sugar, and that can become almost addictive for people and they don't really get off that sugar train. So that's another one that can really play into that as well.
Yes, I completely agree with that last one specifically. And it's like we think that those comfort foods are going to make us feel better. It's like, oh, we just want our like cookies and candies and like warm soups and things. But and not that soup is unhealthy for us, but we really want to, choose the more nutrient dense. We want to get in the nutrients that we need, as well as not spiking our blood sugar and having these like ups and downs in our blood sugar that really impact. I know you're going to talk about that for sure. But I think we underestimate how important, though, that our nutrition is really playing a role. We think we're blaming it on the weather. We blame it on, being cold and tired, but really it could be the nutrition is the root cause of this.
Totally. And just like all things with health, it is multifaceted, right? So it's never just the weather. Like you said,
Yeah.
it's a lot of different things. And often they are layering on top of one another. So the nutrition plays a huge role, which is why we really wanted to do this podcast and help you all figure out some tips and tools that you can incorporate into your life and things to focus on if you are feeling a little bit blue, a little bit down, low energy, that kind of thing. So let's chat about some of those healthy habits for this time of year. The first one that I wanted to touch on is moving your body. Now, I know this is even harder when it's cold outside. I totally feel this as well. Even, going outside in the cold to like drive your car to the gym sometimes sounds horrible. So if that means that you don't leave your house and you instead do an online video workout, or you do your own workout, that's just as good, if not better, if you're going to actually do it, right? So the best movement is the one that you're going to do and that's going to stick with you. So move your body, get sweaty. Sweating is really, really healthy, even just for detoxification. It's really healthy. And movement in general and exercise is going to release some of those endorphins that feel really, really good. So especially when you're feeling down, exercise might feel like the last thing you want to do. And typically it's in those times that it's the number one thing you should do. And it's kind of changing your mental state and your mindset around that. And I don't want to say like force yourself to do it, but just try to remember, like when you do work out, how you feel after the workout and how you feel so good. And you're like, oh, I'm so glad I did that, right? We don't really like regret working out ever. So try to kind of harness that feeling and use that as motivation to actually move your body.
Yeah, and it only has to be for a few minutes. Like I try to tell people, let's not think about trying to do these 45-minute, hour-long workouts. Let's see if we can just do some 10 or 20-minute movement, sessions. I like to even use the word movement instead of the word exercise because it just feels and sounds a little more enticing. And whether it be like little short intervals or just stretches from yoga, like it doesn't even matter. Just pick the thing that you can motivate your body to do. And I always also tell people, pick something that you feel that you enjoy and that you can do consistently. I'd rather you do something for 10 or 15 minutes every single day or 5 days a week versus try to do something for 60 minutes and then give up, for the rest of the month. So, it's short little sessions of movement, I think, are amazing. And then, you talked about like how hard it is to get yourself to go outside during these months. However, getting fresh air, like just trying to look at the sun, no matter where you are, that it's cold, there should be some sunlight on some days, and trying to get outside to have a little bit of fresh air and sunlight. It does boost that cortisol level that you mentioned in the morning, especially if you do it first thing in the morning. It really does boost that cortisol level, which gives you energy to get through the day. And that vitamin D that you need, and just smelling nature, it also has an impact on your mood.
Totally. Yeah. And when we're stuck inside too, we kind of forget about air quality as well. And indoor air is typically, unless you have some really good filters in your house, typically going to be not as great to breathe in as outdoor air. So getting fresh air when you can, getting out into a forest near you if you can, where there's lots of trees, and all of that also has been shown to decrease stress as well. So if you can get out in nature, get off screens, right? Give your eyes a break from staring at your laptop and your iPhone phone all day, and that's going to be helpful as well. And it's going to give you energy and it's going to make you sleep better at night. So you're actually going to sleep better at night if you get daylight during the day in your eyes. So that's something to think about as well, because sleep is super interconnected with everything we're talking about as well. And we really want to focus on that. So moving your body as much as you can, even if it doesn't feel like a lot, getting out in nature and thinking about habit stacking too. So if you can do those at the same time, maybe you go cross country skiing, maybe you go for a brisk walk outside, whatever it is, then you can get your movement and nature in at once. So that can be really helpful. Another thing that you can focus on doing is just creating little rituals and routines that feel good to you. So this can be totally unique to you, your lifestyle, what works for you, but the body loves routine. So if you can find something that works well for you that you can do every day, even if it's 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and that feels good and that you look forward to, that is great. So for example, creating a great bedtime routine. Maybe you do a little meditation or you do some light stretching or you take a bath or whatever it is that feels good to you that you're going to do every day. That can also be really helpful as well. Another one is to think about social connections. So again, when it's cold, we often don't want to leave our houses. I definitely am guilty of this. But really making an effort to see loved ones, whether it's family or friends or anyone like that who really helps make us feel good, right? That lifts us up and maybe we laugh together and just feel really connected to others in our lives. That can be incredibly helpful, especially if you live alone or anything like that, which can be really isolating. And sometimes we don't realize that until we see someone and we're like, oh, I feel so much better now that I saw someone, right? Because we kind of get into those routines and don't realize that that might actually be playing a role. So either go out and see someone or, make a phone call, go on Zoom. We have technology today. Use it if that will help you, but definitely making an effort to see people can be really helpful this time of year.
Yeah, and I actually even think like joining some sort of a group that does something that you enjoy. So even if you don't have, a specific person that you can reach out to, try to, like either if it's something in the community or something online, there are so many options to join, groups of people who do things that you also enjoy and just be a part of something. I think when you're a part of something bigger and you're a part of, other groups of people doing something together, it's just something to motivate you each day. It's something to, have you look forward to, something that you can enjoy and focus on, rather than focusing on sort of the sadness or lack of activity that happens sometimes during this time of year. I love this next one, which is find things to laugh about. And this could be literally just turning on something on the TV, or there's so many books that are funny, like things that you can find on the computer, but laughing just generates happiness. And so, finding options like that is a really great way to bring joy to your day and feel almost like you've exercised after something like that. It really does change your whole mood. And I think that we also have to have things to look forward to. So planning a trip or planning an event or planning, something to do with friends or by yourself that you truly enjoy, having something that you have to schedule and then find out the details about and, plan where you're going to eat and what you're going to do throughout that time period. I think that can really change your focus and give you something joyful and happy to think about.
Totally. Yeah, I completely agree with both of those. I love the laughing one. And the laughing actually also, fun fact, stimulates your vagus nerve, which we've talked about on the podcast before. And it's really important to stimulate that vagus nerve, which helps with the parasympathetic, rest and digest nervous system and just helps your whole body relax. So, really helpful to do that. It's also great for digestion if you have digestive issues. So, definitely that. And I'm always someone like in the winter, I have to have a trip that I am planning and looking forward to because otherwise it feels like, you're just kind of in this cold weather place and you're just kind of miserable and you don't have anything to look forward to until next summer when it's warm again. So if you can plan a trip or like you said, plan a night out with friends or plan a meal or plan whatever it is. And that can sometimes help get you out of that rut as well. And so the next one, we talked about this a little bit with movement, but really focusing on sweating. So sweating is so, so helpful. And working out or movement isn't the only way to do this. So a couple other ways are to find a sauna. A lot of gyms now have saunas. Sometimes there's other like centers that have like massage and that kind of thing that you can rent out a sauna for like half an hour or an hour. Or at home, you can also do a sweat bath, which is just taking a really hot bath, so hot that you're actually sweating. And this is going to really help with those detox pathways, especially if you aren't actually moving your body a lot and you aren't actually working out that much. Sometimes our detox pathways can get a little bit backed up. So making an effort to sweat every day can be helpful as well to kind of get you out of any ruts. The next one is to think about bringing some mindfulness into your life. So, again, this can be very personalized, individualized to what resonates with you. One of the easiest and most accessible things and ways to do this is just to do like 10 minutes of deep breathing. So, you can set a timer on your phone, sit down, and just focus on breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, or in through your nose and out through your nose, just for 10 minutes, and just bring awareness and focus on the breathing and try to, not let your brain wander. And I know that can be really, really hard. So if that means starting with 1 minute or 2 minutes, then start with 1 minute or 2 minute. And there's so many resources out there, free resources. Insight Timer is one of my favorite. They have a ton of meditations and breathing exercises. So doing some of those and doing meditations and that kind of thing this time of year, especially where we're kind of turning inwards anyways, can be really, really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that you brought up that part about there's so many resources, because I know when you're starting out and you tell somebody who's never meditated before to just sit in quiet and clear your head, that just sounds nearly impossible. And I know from my own experience, it really was impossible at first, but it gets easier and easier. It really does. I think the name of the game for meditation is consistency, really doing it every single day, even if it's just for a few minutes. And like you mentioned, if you have to use some of those resources like the guided meditations, even on YouTube, there's so many options for guided meditations. They just listen to what they're saying. And we really do need moments every single day to clear our minds, because the world is stressful. There's so many stressors constantly. We're always worried about our to-do list and all the problems in the world and all of this. And the only way that we can cope with all of this is just to give our bodies these few minutes each day that are just focused on not putting away our to-do list and clearing our head from those worries. And it truly leads to better long-term health. It helps control your heart rate. It does help with blood circulation. Just so many things that this could help with. So if that's the one thing that you set your intention to do, is to start to meditate regularly, I think that most people will feel very happy that they decided to do that. One thing I really also like to think about is finding the things about the season that are enjoyable. Like it's actually kind of nice to be wrapped up on your underneath the blanket on the couch and kind of enjoying the slowness of this time of year, and go to sleep when the sun goes down and try to get more hours of rest. I think that it's okay to have a couple of months that are more focused on sleeping more and kind of maybe staying home a little bit more, and just appreciating the positives of the season as well.
Yeah, exactly. Embracing that kind of cyclical nature of the seasons. If we live in a place with seasons, a lot of times we're just focused on like do, go, do all the things all the time, pedal to the metal. And so it can be a nice excuse to kind of take a step back and just focus on kind of like being rather than doing, which I know can be hard, especially if you more so lean towards, type A tendencies and you're very ambitious and all the things. But looking at that kind of as a reframe of like rest actually being productive, that's been something really helpful for me, that I talk about a lot as well, because it is like you can't just go all the time. And so this can be a great time of year to embrace kind of that slower nature. Another thing to focus on is to think about what you are consuming. And when I say that, I don't mean just nutrition. So we'll talk about nutrition in a little bit, but also looking at what you're consuming in terms of the news, in terms of advertisements, in terms of social media, all of these things that we're constantly bombarded with all day, every day. And we don't realize what that could be doing to our nervous systems. So, looking at how much you are actually consuming, what you're actually consuming, and kind of the energy of that, and considering doing a little detox. So, maybe that means, deleting social media for a few days or turning off the news or whatever feels good to you. Doing that can actually be incredibly powerful. And we don't really realize how much it's affecting us until we take a break from it. So, that's something I really recommend doing as well this time of year, too.
Yeah, absolutely. We have become so addicted. It's like incredible how much we are addicted and attached to our social media, our devices, constantly checking our emails or this or that. And it's like we can't just calm down, like put it away. It's okay. People will wait. Getting a little time where we're just separating ourselves from those devices, I think is just so, so important. The other thing is too, is like our brains get addicted to the satisfaction of getting likes and getting somebody views and getting this, getting that like that
Dopamine. Yeah.
feedback,
Yeah.
from that constant like need, and then our brains also feel a little depressed when we don't get the likes and we don't get the views, and that up and down of our brain, from happiness to a little bit of depression from that little aspect, and on social media is a big deal. It's almost like our blood sugar going up and down all day long. So it's like we really should try to take a certain hour of the day that's like dedicated to no social media and no phone, and trying to separate yourself from that email. And I also teach people to please try to put your devices in airplane mode throughout the night. Try to put your devices as far away from your head and your bed, as possible, because it's that constant stimulation, even when we're sleeping, that our phone is sending. So we need to separate ourselves from this in order to give our bodies that break and that rest and recovery that we need.
Yeah, no, entirely. And leading by example, I just deleted my Instagram, and sometimes I'll do it like once a
Wow.
month for just a few days. And it's so nice because it resets your dopamine, because you don't realize that every time you open that app and every time you look at it, it's firing off dopamine, and then it makes you less sensitive to that and more addictive to it, because it's that, am I going to get the stimulation? Am I not going to get the stimulation? Like
Exactly.
all of that. And we don't realize, a lot of people too, like first thing they do in the morning is they wake up and they look at their phone and they look at their
Mhm.
email and they look at their social media and they look at all these things. And I am totally guilty of this sometimes. I really try not to, but like especially with email, as you know, Stacy, like running your own business, you're constantly
Yeah.
monitoring everything. So it can be really hard, but just bringing mindfulness to that. And even if that means like you wake up and you just take 5 deep breaths before looking at your phone, and just like tuning in with your body and how you're feeling before your day starts and all the chaos unleashes itself on you, like
Mhm.
even that can be huge and really, really helpful for just shifting your mindset and shifting your nervous system and shifting your energy for the day. So it
Mhm.
doesn't sound like a lot, but it really can be quite helpful. Another thing that you can focus on, I would argue any time of the year, but especially this time of year, is focusing on having a gratitude practice. So, this is another one that might not sound like a big deal. It's very accessible. Anyone can do this anytime, but practicing gratitude, again, just totally shifts your mindset and shifts your energy. And, there's studies on this as well if you want to go look at that, but it's so helpful to kind of think about all the things, or even just one little thing that you're grateful for, especially when you're feeling down or you're feeling depressed or you're feeling anxious or you're feeling just like blah. That's the time, especially similar to what we were talking about with exercise, when you're like, that's the last thing I want to do. With the gratitude, like that's the best time to do it, because it really shifts your mindset. And even if you're like, I'm just grateful for my bed, it can be something so little or something much bigger, but creating a habit around that is really helpful. So maybe, that means in the morning you wake up up and you have some warm lemon water and you say one thing you're grateful for. And you do that every morning, and that's your little routine. Maybe it's something like that or something different, but incorporating that can be quite helpful to kind of shift your mindset into thinking more about like the positivity and all of the good things that you have in your life.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I try to do that also like before bed, like I just want like, I feel like that will start my next day off pretty good if I can go to bed saying thank God, or thank whoever you thank for, the thing that you're most thankful for and most grateful for. Like you said, even no matter how small or big it is, I think if we can shift our mindset. And then along the same lines, I think we already sort of alluded to this, but just being present and in the moment, like we're always so focused on like, well, what if this is going to happen? What if that is going to happen? We're constantly thinking about future things that we can't even control. If we can just say, well, right now in this moment, that thing didn't happen yet. So I'm going to focus on this, what am I hearing in this moment? What am I feeling? What am I seeing? And like that, I really like, that's how to stay present. And I find that really helps also, even when I'm trying to fall asleep at night, which I've told you I struggle with a bunch. And when I can just like, focus on like the thing I am touching and, hearing and seeing in that one moment is the way that I am able to sort of stay more present, clear my mind, be grateful for what I'm grateful for, and get myself to sleep. So I think those are all some really good suggestions for that. The next one I wanted to talk about was the same idea that we talked about before with getting sunlight, going outside and looking at the sun. We actually could use sort of these more synthetic ways of getting light in our eyes. So really making sure, and we really do want to follow the circadian rhythm. So we want to start the day off with light. So make sure that there is some sort of light. There's some red light therapy options that you can consider to really get light in your face, and think about doing that throughout most of the day until the sun goes down. So, as long as because if we're in this house and we're shutting all the shades and all the curtains are drawn and it's just dark all day, it's going to be hard to find happiness, because that is not something that's going to, wake you up and give you energy and make you feel good and motivated for the day. So that's a good option. I really love this next one, because we have to have something, a hobby that we enjoy, something that you look forward to doing, even if it's something brand new that you've never done before, that you want to learn about and try, that can get you out in a community, maybe like we talked about before, do something with a group. But one of the things that our brain needs is something that we feel rewarded by doing. And oftentimes we don't feel rewarded unless we give ourselves a challenge. So, learning something new is a challenge that really can keep your brain kind of focused on that and not on other things that are upsetting you in that time. So finding a hobby, learning something new, challenging your brain, getting, good at something is a rewarding feeling that really could bring happiness to you.
Yeah, exactly. I think hobbies are super underrated, especially when, we're busy with work and family and all the things, but really prioritizing that, because we're not just here to work, right? Like we want you to actually enjoy your life. And so, find a hobby, like you said, you could have never done it before. Like it could be ceramics or CrossFit or knitting or you name it. All of that can be really helpful, and learning something new can be really stimulating for your brain as well. So there's so many online courses too. So Udemy, I think is how you say it, is one. The courses are really, really cheap on there, but you can just do a quick Google search and anything you're interested in, even if it's like, house repairs or something like that you're like, okay, I'll learn how to do this and just kind of like do it myself. Getting excited about that kind of thing can be really helpful, especially in these times when it feels like there's not much going on. That feels really good. So finding something, whether it's online or in person, that feels good to you can be really helpful as well. And the last one is to just, either go to a spa if that's accessible for you, or make like a home spa day. So really focusing on relaxation. So take a bath, do a face mask, listen to some relaxing music, read a book, like really set time aside for you to really kind of pamper yourself during this time. Like we talked about, like slowing down during this time, that can be a great excuse to do this. So that's just another idea for you. So I know we talked about a lot with this, but hopefully, there's some juicy stuff in there that will resonate with you and that you can take away with you to start to implement, and that will help you kind of make it through this January, February, even March sometimes in places is like pretty rough, especially the beginning of March. So there's a lot there. But let's go ahead and transition into nutrition, which is obviously, our specialties here. So there's so much that you can do with nutrition that impacts your mood, your energy, all of these things that we're talking about. And so when we're thinking about nutrition, especially for this time of year, all the time, of course, but this time of year as well, we want to look at gut health, because there is a gut brain connection, meaning that if you have imbalances in your gut or your gut health isn't so great, that can actually impact your mood, your depression, your energy levels, all of these things. And so we really want to focus on creating an environment in your gut where your microbiome, those organisms in your gut, are thriving. And so most people are not eating nearly enough fiber. And that's the number one thing to really focus on for gut health, because the little bacteria in your gut feed off of fiber. They love it. Every time you have fiber, they have a party. So basically, fiber is any plant foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts and seeds, legumes. And the more diversity you can get in those, the better, because that feeds all the different types of strains of bacteria in there. So most people will have like 3 vegetables they cycle through, like peas, carrots, and potatoes or something like that. So I really urge you to try some new vegetables, try some new fruits, try some new legumes, whatever it is. Maybe just get like one new one at the grocery store every week, and that's going to help improve your gut health as well. So focusing on that, and then also focusing on incorporating some probiotic foods. So sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir, yogurt, if it has probiotic strains in it and you tolerate dairy, but there's also dairy-free ones. All of that can be really helpful as well for gut health. So really focusing on increasing fiber, increasing probiotic foods. Stacy and I talk a lot about resistant starch as well, which can be really helpful both for gut health and for blood sugar. So kind of the best sources of that would be cooked and cooled potatoes, and cooked and cooled rice are great ones. Bananas, plantains, green bananas especially, are all really great in that. Oats have some as well. So trying to incorporate all of those gut healthy foods is going to help with that mood as well.
Yeah, that was such a great comprehensive explanation of that. And what people, I always hear about like people who coming to me with anxiety. And one of the first things I think of when they tell me they have anxiety is that there is some type of imbalance in their gut microbiome, because the bacteria that live in your gut send out more serotonin and dopamine than even our own body cells do. So they have such an impact on our mood. And oftentimes we are anxious, not because of something that's going on in our lives, outside of, our physical. It's really because of this imbalance in the gut bacteria. So you're absolutely right. The more fiber you can get, the more you know that you're having regular bowel movements is a good sign that you have a better, balanced microbiome. So look at the signs and the symptoms that your body is telling you. If you're constipated or have diarrhea, it is a sign that there could be some type of imbalance in the bacteria. So absolutely that can impact your mood if you can eat, more of those sources of foods that you mentioned. The next one is so important, and this is that we get enough protein. This is such an important aspect of keeping us healthy long-term. In order to maintain lean body mass, muscle mass as we age is so important. And the way that we do that is by eating enough protein and then also doing weight-bearing exercises. So that combination is really important for long-term health. It's also really important to control your blood sugar. And that's another indicator of our long-term health, is how well we control our blood sugar. The last thing I'll say about protein, by the way, it's in things like your animal proteins, like your chicken, fish, red meat. It is also found in some plant foods like nuts and seeds and legumes. But what I wanted to mention about the protein is that if you can start your day off with a very high, good protein dense breakfast, you are really setting yourself up for success for the rest of the day. I think oftentimes when we try to cut back on our protein or even our breakfast in general, then we're chasing calories the rest of the day. We're just not really giving our body the nutrition it needs to get ourselves off with the energy that we need for the day. And when we don't include a good amount of protein at breakfast, then we are also at risk for having a high blood sugar from a carbohydrate-rich breakfast, and then a big drop in our blood sugar a little bit later on in the day. So really including that protein in breakfast is so important. And then the next one is, though, that we also do need healthy carbs. We're constantly trying to cut out our carbs because we're so worried about gaining weight. And, we've gone through this sort of phase in the past 10 years where everyone's like, every diet should be low carb and no carb. And this is not true. Like you mentioned before, the bacteria in your gut need carbs to thrive. So, and we also do need carbs for fuel and energy. So as long as we're combining our carbs with our protein, we don't have to worry too much about the big spike in blood sugar that happens when we eat carbs all by themselves. So it's important to include the healthy carbs, like you mentioned, the resistant starch foods, like things like rice, potatoes, beans, oatmeal, quinoa, banana, squash, plantains, as well as fruits and vegetables, which contain carbs. They are all full of vitamins and minerals that our body really does need for healthy processes. Like I said, as long as you're combining the carbs with protein and fat, you don't have to worry as much about this big blood sugar spike, and then you're going to be getting all the nutrition that your body needs.
Super well said. I completely agree. The protein thing, especially for people, a lot of people don't realize how lacking in protein they are, especially for breakfast. And I always say breakfast really sets the stage for the rest of the day. And so you really want to make sure, usually like at least like 25, 30 grams of protein in your breakfast, which just for reference, like one egg is 6 grams. So I see a lot of people having like one egg for breakfast and then wondering why they're like starving or hangry or anxious later in the day. And those blood sugar swings are really important to understand, because when your blood sugar is too low, or even if you're under eating as well, that can trigger anxiety and stress and hunger and all of these things that we want to avoid. We want you feeling energized and balanced and in a good mood for the day. And the way to do that is with healthy protein. And like you said, getting those healthy whole food carbohydrates in as well, because that's going to help with gut health as well as blood sugar and give you some energy as well. So the fat is important too, getting those healthy fats in. For brain health, especially, as well as hormones. And like you said, that they also help balance the blood sugar. And so making sure you're getting the right kinds of fat. So a lot of people are eating fat, but it's not necessarily the healthy kind. So a lot of inflammatory omega-6 fats. So we want to focus on especially omega-3 anti-inflammatory fats. And the best sources of those are wild fatty fish, grass-fed eggs have some, grass-fed beef. Also, if you want some vegetarian sources, chia, flax seeds, hemp, and walnuts have some, but not as much. So if you are plant-based, I typically recommend supplementing to get enough in, but definitely focusing on the healthy fats. And then your monounsaturated fats like avocado and olives and olive oil, all of that is really, really great for brain health. And we want to think about preserving our brain health and doing whatever we can so that we can help with our bodies and help decrease inflammation and all of that. And so in terms of inflammation in general too, inflammation can also trigger anxiety and depression and mood issues. And a lot of people have chronic underlying inflammation. And there's a lot of things in our lives that contribute to that, especially in our diets, like sugar and refined carbohydrates and fried food and other inflammatory fats and alcohol. And all of these things can increase our body's inflammation. And that can definitely cause us to feel bleh and not good and put on weight and not want to work out and have low energy and all the things we're talking about today. So we really, really want to be conscious about this, about avoiding those inflammatory foods and then increasing and adding in some of those really powerful and delicious anti-inflammatory foods. So there's a lot of foods like ginger, for example, which is also great because it has very warming qualities. So maybe doing like a ginger tea, adding ginger to some stir fries, that kind of thing. Adding turmeric in, so making some curries, or I also like to get the turmeric root and kind of grating that into stir fries as well, or adding it to smoothies. Just make sure you add a little bit of black pepper because that increases the absorption. And then dark green leafy veggies. Most people don't get nearly enough of these. So spinach, kale, Swiss chard, collards, all of these things are really, really helpful. Wild fatty fish, I already mentioned, but those omega-3 fats are going to be really helpful. Tart cherries are another one that you can get dried, or you can also get tart cherry juice, and that has very powerful anti-inflammatory properties. Tomatoes as well. Olive oil, I mentioned with the fats, those nuts and seeds, especially those high in omega-3 fats. And then berries. So blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, all of those are great. And then adding in teas. So things like matcha, or, I mentioned ginger tea, things like that can be a really helpful way, especially this time of year when we're really cold. It can be a nice thing to kind of get into, do some loose leaf teas and incorporate some more herbs into your life, which also can be really helpful for gut health as well. There's a lot of really great herbs that help with gut health that you can make into some delicious teas too.
That's an amazing list. And I know this one you're always posting about in your Instagram and stuff, which is your favorite fatty fish, which is sardines.
Yes. It's so good.
You almost forgot that. I'm so shocked it wasn't listed
I know.
but those foods are so healthy for you. I think you also have, used these companies where they sell the prepackaged little cans of sardines. And I always use the acronym SMASH, which stands for salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. And these foods do not taste, I know some people are so scared to try these things because they just kind of sound fishy, but they do taste really good. They're not as fishy as you think. And they're already prepared in these cans. Like I think one of the companies I use is Crown Prince. But you can get them like already, just open up the can. It's such an easy like lunch for you. And it is full of healthy nutrients, not only the omega-3 fatty acids, but we're also learning that some of those foods can feed the good bacteria in your gut. This one specific bacterial strain called Akkermansia, which is so good for us. So yeah, that's another good option. But some other things to think about during this time of year, also cooking a new fun recipe. There's so many places to find good recipes, online websites and cookbooks and things. And what a fun thing to do. That is something that you can kind of like look forward to doing, like, cooking a new recipe, or even baking some new, bread or cake or pot. What we constantly think of is that baking and sweets are not healthy for us. And there's actually ways of making these things healthy, as long as we're careful about whatever we're using to sweeten the food. So there are some healthier options to choose versus sugar, things like some honey or maple syrup, or even dates. I love dates to sweeten baked foods and other dishes, as well as maybe trying to find a flour that isn't gluten. So sometimes, replacing the gluten with an almond flour or coconut flour, that can make something that's baked a little bit more healthy. But there could be, even you could use things like dark chocolate and eggs and your other kind of normal ingredients that you would add. Just replace the sugar and replace the flour, and you can pretty much think that whatever you're baking is healthy for you. So I think by choosing new recipes, another nice thing to think about in this season is just a big warm soup or stew. Not only is it delicious, but it can last for days. So it's like you don't have to cook every single night. It's a nice sort of thing to meal prep on the weekend and have that to just grab through for the rest of the week. So I think cooking and improving your nutrition can be one of those fun hobbies that you add to this part of the year.
Yes, I love that. And with the baking, you're so right. Like you can make it much healthier. I often have people, add some protein powder to help with the blood sugar or add some extra fiber, add some
Yeah.
like psyllium husk, add some ground flax seeds, add some more nuts and seeds. So you can, put a lot of stuff in those, whatever you're baking and make it so much healthier and it's delicious and you're less likely to reach for the candy bar or the ice cream or whatever it is if you have a healthier version. And I'm such a big fan of soups and stews and curries and just adding all the things to it and then not having to cook for a couple days. So I love that one. Another one to focus on is to just be mindful of your caffeine intake, as well as your alcohol intake. So this is a time of year when, especially if you're feeling more tired or more anxious or stressed, you might want to increase both of those. And often, especially like you rely on caffeine to get through the day, but it also could be impairing your sleep and making your anxiety worse. So same with alcohol, we might think it's going to make us sleep better, but it actually doesn't. And it can affect blood sugar and the gut microbiome and all of these things, inflammation that we're talking about. So just watch and be mindful of how much you're drinking, especially because it can be easy to, drink more than we realize and kind of get in a routine and habit with that. My last one is just talking about supplementation. So, as we know, in winter, we're not walking around outside in the sun very much for most people at northern latitudes. So, a lot of people end up very vitamin D deficient. So, talk to your doctor and get tested really as soon as possible and start supplementing. So many people are very, very deficient in vitamin D, and that can definitely play into mood issues and inflammation and all of these things that we're talking about. So that's one of those supplements that most people benefit from, especially in the winter. The other one is magnesium. So a lot of people are very deficient in magnesium, and magnesium is responsible for many, many things. We could do like a whole podcast hour plus on magnesium. But one thing is that it helps relax you and it helps calm you down. It helps relax muscles and it also helps with blood sugar. So a lot of people are magnesium deficient for a number of reasons, but stress also uses up more magnesium. So it's likely you need more magnesium than you realize. And that's another one that can be an easy supplement. Talk to your doctor first, but adding that in can be helpful, especially this time of year as well. So that's all I have, Stacy. Do you have anything else you wanted to add?
I think that is an amazing list of not only the lifestyle modifications and behaviors, as well as the nutrition tips. So I think that if we could, just pick your few that you want to really try to implement and put your mind to it. I know, creating new habits is not easy. So it really does take planning and then reminding, you kind of fall off a little bit. So pick your few that you think you can work on and really try to just stick your mind to being consistent with it. Even if it's just short periods of time, the food, small little bits of your goals versus trying to do everything.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you said that because we really wanted to give you all, tons of ideas so that you can find what works for you and what sounds good to you. You definitely do not need to do all of these, but like Stacy said, just picking, one or a few that feel really good to you and starting to implement them consistently, because consistency is better than perfection, right? Perfection's not really attainable, but the more that you can implement these things on a regular basis, the better off you will be. So thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you next time.
Thanks so much for listening. If you found this episode helpful, we'd love if you left a rating and review and shared it with someone else who would find it helpful. You can find more information about Leah at gracefunctionalnutrition.com and get in touch with her through email at leah@gracefunctionalnutrition.com or on Instagram at gracefunctionalnutrition. To find more information about Stacy, you can find her at healfromfood.com, email her at stacy@healfromfood, or on social media at healfromfood. See you next time.